Paul, thanks so much for joining us. Congratulations on completing the winter Bob Graham round solo, unsupported. How did it feel reaching Keswick at the end of the round?
It was brilliant. We'd have been solo and unsupported. I was completely on my own. And then, run up to the moot hall. No one, there was only a couple of people knew where I was and what I was doing. And my wife was at the end. So I ran up to the moot hall, up the steps, stopped my watch and, sat down. And, then we went for a pint in the round. So sat in the round, just me and my wife had a pint, took it all in. It's absolutely brilliant.
An amazing achievement, especially unsupported in the conditions that we've had. Anybody who's kind of unaware, we've had about 2 weeks of really kind of brutal frost and conditions, haven't we? Minus 10 at times, and that kind of conditions on the mountains. For those unfamiliar with the Bob Graham round, could you tell us a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, it's 60 odd miles circuit that sets off at Keswick, Moot Hall in Keswick. You run 42 peaks, and it's about 27,000 feet of ascent. It's a 24-hour running challenge that was based on the original 24-hour fellrunner record that Bob Graham set in 1932. Since then, there's about 2,700 people who've completed the round in less than 24 hours. Normally, every year there'll be about 200 people attempt it, and around about 100 or so make it round. In general, people do it supported, and some people choose to do it unsupported.
Yeah. We know that you're extremely experienced in the mountains, and we're aware of what you do for a living, that side of things. But could you tell us a little bit about your background and how this might have prepared you and the training that you've done to prepare you for the winter, Bob Graham?
Yeah, I've been messing about in the fells all my life, since I was a kid. In the last 10 years, got into ultramarathons. Started with, Lakeland 50, Lakeland 100. Winter ultramarathons, done the Spine race twice, the Arc of Attrition 100, the Lady Anne's Way 100. And then, just fancied doing a winter round. This year, got into backyard ultras. Decided to have a go at a backyard ultra. Done pretty well. Ended up on the England team, and then ended up representing the UK in October. So spent most of my year doing that kind of training, and then they just decided we're gonna end the year with doing a fell run. So done the 23 before tea round, which was the first winter completion on the 2nd of December with my wife. And that was, 35 miles. And after that, I was planning to do a supported winter Bob Graham round with one of my friends. But he got injured. And then, so just waiting. But last week when we seen the weather, I just decided I would go on my own and have a go at a solo round.
So training-wise, you've had things in place for a long time. You're building up. You've had a really kind of good standard. In terms of what you do for a living, could I ask?
Yeah, I work at Pirelli in Carlisle, and this year I've just set up my own coaching business, and I'm coaching runners now. So
Fantastic. So you're now really a source of inspiration and advice for people should they have any questions, that side of things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no problem.
Your choice of kits for a solo unsupported Bob Graham round in winter, it must have been something else purely down to the fact that traditionally the Bob Graham round, people, support crews can help you with the kits. Pacers might carry some kits, or if you need anything, in terms of nutrition, it might be carried as well. So obviously on solo unsupported, you're carrying it all, plus all of the, the winter kit that you might need. What kind of things did you take in the mountains?
Yeah, this is what makes a solo round so hard, because you've got to carry all your kit from the start, and you know, the more kit you take, the heavier your bag's going to be, the slower you're going to go, and you know, you've got 24 hours to do it. So the main nutrition wise, I took Mountain Fuel sports jellies. There's 30 grams of carbs per gel, and I took 2 of them an hour, which carried 40 of them. So I knew I had 60 grams of carbs for 20 hours, and I took some bars on top of that. Clothing wise, obviously it's critical that you to keep warm. I had an Alpkit merino wool base layer that I was wearing, with a Montane mid-layer micro les hoodie, and then a Gore-Tex jacket. The spare clothes wise, took a merino base layer and primal off jacket, so you had plenty of clothes. They had obviously hat and gloves, and spare hat and gloves, and waterproof trousers, and basically that was it. But enough gear that something happened, I could keep on. As well as that, I was carrying an emergency bivvy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of how you kind of approach the winter bob, was it a case of coming in under the 24 hours, that was your aim, or did you have a certain kind of time? Were you kind of pacing? Was there any of that side of things?
No, the sole aim was to come in under 24 hours. Up until last week, there'd only been 2 people that had ever completed a solo unsupported winter bob Graham, and that was Martin Stone in 1987 and Sheoli in 2020. So my whole aim was just to get under 24 hours. I had a schedule that I was following, and that was it. So, and it went well.
From the outside, kind of looking in, just so that people are aware of how you kind of what time you started, and also whether you did it clockwise or anti-clockwise. Could you tell us more on that?
Yeah, I started at 7 o'clock at night, and purely just so I could have the daylight later on in the round. I went clockwise, so set off from the Moot Hall. First fell, went up Skidder, and then over to Great Calver and Blencathra, and then down to Frelkeld and over the Helvellyn range. Yeah. So it was dark all night over leg 1, 2, and then it started getting light on leg 3. Both fell, and there was sunrise on Great End, and Scarfell Pike was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so, absolutely. I was caught 1 or 2 of the photos, and they do look, the conditions look absolutely perfect, really, as well, don't they?
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. So after sunrise, you had daylight for the rest of leg 4, and then sunset on leg 5 over Dale Head and Robinson, and it was just like this red glow. I would like to stay. It was one of them. If you could stop and take photos, the photos would have been amazing. Normally carry a GoPro when I'm running. I'm always, filming and taking photos. But weight was that critical that I didn't take that. Yeah. But it was brilliant. Even through the night, and the set off going up Skidder and you going over, there was a meteor shower. There wasn't any clouds in the sky, and it was frozen ground, snow. You could see for miles. It was amazing. It was to be out in them conditions. It was absolutely brilliant.
It's an amazing achievement. So basically, your strategy in terms of like setting off at that kind of time was while you were fresh, to do some of it in the dark that you knew. Yeah,
and the leg 1 and 2, it's navigation wise, it's pretty easy. Obviously, you know the route, but in the dark, it's simple navigation. It's not a problem. And then the trickier ground over the Scarfell range, and Lord Drake and the scramble over there, it was all in daylight. Yeah. And then leg 4, going up Ewbarrow over Red Pike Steeple. I prefer to do that leg in daylight because it's really good running and you can make good time on it.
Yeah, The conditions, obviously, from during the course of the last couple of weeks have been really kind of like icy, just even around here. What were they like in the mountains? What was the conditions underfoot?
Just a couple of inches of snow, but it'd been dry for a few days. It was frozen there, but it was just blanketed. For anyone that knows Bob Graham, on leg one, it's really boggy when you drop down Skidder to go towards Great Calver. Quite famous. It's really boggy on Hare Crag and up Great Calver, and your ankle deep in mud. Whereas on Wednesday night it was frozen solid. So instead of skipping and hopping around bogs, you just run straight across. And that was a treat. It was absolutely brilliant.
It helps keep
hard.
the feet dry as well.
Yeah, dry feet. It's hard to convey how good it was. It was absolutely brilliant. I was worried about Hallsfell Ridge. When I got to Hallsfell Ridge, underfoot, would that be iced up? And I'd seen some online, that it was covered in snow and blah blah. And when I got there was snow on it, but the rock was dry, really grippy, and just skipped down it.
That's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really helps, doesn't it, to maintain the pace?
Yeah, it was perfect conditions, for anyone wanting to do a round. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday last week's absolutely perfect.
Yeah. In terms of your footwear during the winter, Bob Graham, what did you use?
I used Scott Ultra RCs. They're probably the trainer that I've used most this year. Wore them on the Lady Anne's Way 100. I bought a pair, and I'll see how they go. I really like them. So for the Bob Graham, kind of because I didn't have the choice. I wasn't able to change my trainers at any point. You want a trainer that had a bit of cushioning but had a bit of grip that you could obviously wear for 24 hours comfortably, and they fit the bill. So when I got to leg 2 going to Clough Head, the snow was a bit deeper, and I was carrying micro spikes. I put them over my shoe, and I wore them all the way to Wasdale. And Catula micro spikes, just small metal spikes on them, and took them off at Wasdale, and obviously put them in my bag. And
If you hadn't had the micro spikes, would it have been a different story on that section?
I don't know how much difference it would have made. It might have been a little bit slower. The week before, I'd ran that section with my wife without micro spikes, and it was okay. But the snow was obviously more frozen on Wednesday night. Few points quite slippy. A lot of the streams where the streams cross the path had frozen. With the micro spikes, you can just cross over that quite confidently. Whereas if you don't have them on, it's a bit slippy. So I would have lost some time, but how much I don't know.
Yeah, it's the confidence, like you say, just underfoot, just having that confidence just to make that step, isn't it? And especially if part of the round where it goes Lord's Rake, and if it's in the shade, never actually sees the sunlight, then it might be a bit more dangerous on.
Yeah, the only two bits I was worried about were Hallsfell and then the top of Lord's Rake, where you come out of West Wall Traverse. Even in the summer, there's water on there. That had frozen over, but you could scramble around it and scrambled around it and out of it okay.
Yeah. In terms of the hardest parts of the round for yourself, was there any kind of moments where you thought, okay, this is getting tough now, or was it just really just motoring through?
Yeah, leg 1, it was motoring through. It was enjoyable, but what was of a concern, it was that cold that my water bottles were freezing. So I had issues with that on leg 2, and I was putting in my mouth trying to stop it to start with, because I knew I was going to have a problem. It was that cold. It was down, kind of like -12, -14. and I had Salomon flasks, and the tops were freezing. So I was trying to sip water out of each one, every few minutes to try and stop that from happening. But it was that cold on leg 2, they started freezing solid. So I had to take them out my bag and actually put them into my jacket underneath my clothes, and then strap my bag up so they were kind of secure, and run with them, in my jacket. That sorted it out. The biggest problem on the round that you don't think about is actually dehydration. In them conditions, all the streams are frozen. It's hard to get water. Your bottles are freezing. You've got to make sure that you drink enough. So I had that to contend with early on, but later on in the round, when it got daylight and that it warmed up, it wasn't a problem. But other than that, going to Bewbarrow, coming out of Wasdale, it was like getting tired now. Which it's quite funny because I help a lot of people I support a lot of people on rounds, and when they're on Bewbarrow and suffering, I'm like, it's all right, dig in, this is what gives it value. If it was easy, it would be of no value. And going to Bewbarrow, thinking how many times have I said that to people? And here I am, like, pissed right off. But it was all right. What was quite funny as well was that although there's only 2 people done this, a lad I know, James Gibson, he actually set off going the other way at 5 o'clock in the morning, which James is getting quite well known now. He's completed the Wainwrights, he's done loads of stuff. Probably one of the most underrated runners currently running the Lake District. He doesn't race at all, but is a very fast runner. And there's stuff going on. I helped out on his Wainwright round earlier in the year, both of them, and we've kept in contact. And he messages on Tuesday on about various stuff that was going on. And he says, I'm setting off on a Bob Graham on Thursday. And I was texting back laughing, I'm setting off tomorrow. And then he says, I'm going anti-clockwise, or I'm going clockwise. So it's like, right, well, we're going to see each other at some point on our rounds. We've got to see each other. And sure enough, on the top of Bewbarrow, James running along, and we stopped, had a quick chat, and got a photo together, which, it's been published online. People have seen it. So that was quite good. I'd had a hard time going to Bewbarrow, and then, this uplifting experience, we bumped into each other, and it was good because as well we both made it round. So this small group of 2 people who've previously completed it, that club's, there's now 4 people, so we managed to double it in 24 hours.
That's absolutely brilliant. And James, I spoke to James earlier on in the year, references Wainwright. He's remarkable. He is underrated, or he doesn't know how good he is, but he's really good.
It's just a quiet lad, unassuming, but he's really fast.
Yeah.
I think he's just turned 30. You're going to see quite a bit of James, in the future. He's got some big plans. And it'll be good to see.
He's a good lad, isn't he? Is there anything that you would do differently if you were to, let's say, have the hindsight of what you've got now from your recent solo unsupported Bob Graham winter round? Is there anything that you do differently?
Yeah, the biggest thing was I would zip my pocket up on my rucksack when I was coming off steeple and I got to pillar. For safety reasons, I wasn't carrying a tracker or anything, but he had a phone on us where I had a WhatsApp group with my wife, coach, and another lad, which I was going to update just 5 times throughout the day at various points. So, because obviously they're quite concerned for my safety. And I put a message on at Frelkeld when I passed through Frelkeld, Dunmail, and then Scorfell. And the out and back to steeple, I'd thought I'll wait to pillar because I know there's phone signal on pillar. And I got to pillar I looked down, my phone wasn't in my pocket. So it's like, right, what am I going to do now? It's about 6 hours till I get to Keswick. I haven't got my phone. They're not going to know where I'm at. What am I going to do? I was quite worried about it. I passed a couple of walkers and I asked them. The only phone number I can remember is my mum's house number. So got them. They rang my mum's house to ring my wife and tell her, you know, I'd lost my phone. So that was it. So when I ran into Keswick, I said, you know, I'm sorry about that. You know, you must have been worried. No, we weren't bothered. You'd be all right. We did get this message that you lost your phone. So luckily though, so my phone, as my screensaver, I put the splits of the round on my screensaver. I knew I'd dropped my phone on a small area between steeple and pillar. Someone had almost immediately picked it up after I dropped it. Must have been the next person by. They'd seen the screensaver, realised it was a Bob Graham, and then that night, my wife had posted, you know, that I'd finished on Facebook, and they immediately messaged us, that lad lost his phone. We found one, and I got it back the next day.
That's brilliant. That's the beauty about the community and the lakes and any mountain community, isn't it? It's phenomenal, isn't it? What would you say are the main reasons that you're drawn to a winter Bob Graham round solo unsupported?
Just to have a go. You know, it's one of them things, it hadn't been done, you know, very often. And, you know, I had the time, the conditions were perfect. So why not just go and have a run and see how you get on? You know, it's, I tried before in 2020. The thing about it is, it's, you know, you can push your limits and blah, blah, but the biggest safety net you've got your own judgment. You know, at any point during the round, if I ran up skidder and I thought, I'm not really feeling this, just turn around, walk down and went on. You know, there's absolutely no problem. If I got to Frelkeld, you could have just walked back to Keswick. You know, so it's as extreme as you want to make it, but you know, if you're confident in your own judgment, how much danger are you going to be in? Because at any time, if I wasn't happy, I would have just dropped down to the nearest valley. And so, you know, it's just to have a go. And, you know, obviously, I'm more than happy that I've completed it.
It's a fantastic achievement, Mike. What would you say is next on horizon for yourself?
I'm not sure, as in, got to enjoy Christmas. I've got a few days free round about New Year, and there was talk of going to Wales, but, you know, we'll see what happens. Next year, I've got 3 months and I'm going to be training for a backyard ultra. Training for that start of the year. And then in June, I've got a place on the England team for the Four Nations backyard ultra in Wales, which was the event that I won this year. So I'm quite keen to, you know, go back and see how we do on that. Then September, there's a new race in the Lake District called the 13 Valleys. 180k starting and finishing at Keswick. I've got a place in that, so I'm, you know, quite looking forward to that.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time and congratulations on completing the winter Bob Graham round.
Right, thanks very much.